And today we're back up in Northumberland, up on the wall. Why are we here? Well, I'll let you know. So let's begin. The Hadrian's Wall was built in AD 122. Why? Well, it's a border. The Roman Empire stretched all over Europe, Africa, and up as far as this. This is a northern western part of the Roman Empire. The Romans did go further, went into Scotland, and there is Roman forts up there and they were still in use. But they decided to drop back and put this barrier up. And there was mail castles and turrets. There's a turret just behind us. And what about the soldiers that defended this wall? Well, at each mail castle there was about 500 soldiers, and about a third of them would be on leave. The rest of them were on duties. What about the soldiers? Well, you've got to realise they've come from a warm climate and they were up. You know what the British weather's like, be a bit miserable at times, not very nice. And you've got to think the legionnaires, the Roman army were, the ones that come into Britain, were made up of not just Romans, but conquered countries as they did on the way up. There was a lot of Germanic soldiers and Gauls, not as many, some from Spain, but they all made up the sections of the different garrisons that were housed in the mail castles. And their duties didn't always constitute fighting or guarding the wall. They had other duties. When they weren't guarding the wall, they had to walk around, check the wall, make sure there was no defects and there was no weaknesses. They also had maybe getting put into parties that had to fix the wall, repair it if needed, as well as others. And you've got to realise that most of the Roman soldiers were also skilled craftsmen in other trades. And just stand around on a wall, it'd be very mundane and boring for them. And the miserable weather and the miles away from home. So you'd expect them, when they're off duty, they had to go, sometimes in the villages, the first 2 centuries they weren't allowed to marry, but they did meet up with some local women on the side. And as well as paying for the rent and food, they also had to look after the equipment. So with the climate they were in, the swords and that naturally started to rust, and if they couldn't clean it themselves, they had to go to the local blacksmiths or men that worked with leather and got them all cleaned up so they could look all right on parade and when they're getting checked over. And if they didn't, they ended up in what the military nowadays call jankers, which is they get punished. So, as well as having to put up with the boredom and routine and military training, although they didn't see a lot of combat, there was a lot of training still went on. And believe it or not, the life expectancy of a Roman soldier was about 41. So not a great life expectancy. So harsh times for them. Anyway, hope you've liked that little video about the Roman soldiers. If you did, don't forget, hit the subscribe button, give this video the thumbs up, hit that notification bell, and we'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.